When we think of ancient Greece, we often picture its towering columns, celebrated philosophers, and the birthplace of democracy. However, hidden beneath the gleaming surface of this civilization lies a dark and largely overlooked reality: the extensive institution of slavery. Slavery in ancient Greece was not an anomaly. It was a cornerstone of the society. From Athens to Sparta, enslaved individuals made up a significant portion of the population. In Athens, estimates suggest that slaves outnumbered free citizens at times, comprising nearly 1/3 of the population. Their labor was indispensable, supporting everything from agriculture and mining to domestic tasks and public infrastructure. What's striking is how normalized slavery was in Greek society. The idea that freedom was a natural right was limited to free men. Philosophers like Aristotle even argued that some people were natural slaves, biologically predisposed to servitude. This justification not only dehumanized the enslaved but also perpetuated the system across centuries. Who were the slaves? Slaves in ancient Greece were a diverse group. They came from various regions, often as a result of warfare or piracy. Thracians, Scythians, and people from Asia Minor were commonly enslaved, alongside Greeks themselves who were captured during conflicts. The slave markets of places like Delos served as hubs for this grim trade, where human lives were bought and sold like commodities. The origins of slaves could also affect their treatment. Some slaves were household servants, working closely with their owners, while others were sentenced to brutal lives in silver mines or quarries, where survival was often measured in months rather than years. These slaves endured grueling labor, malnutrition, and physical abuse. The life of a slave in ancient Greece varied significantly depending on their role, but for most it was marked by cruelty and hardship. Domestic slaves might fare slightly better, performing household chores or raising their master's children, but even they were subject to beatings and humiliation. The most horrific conditions, however, were reserved for those forced to work in the mines. The Laurian silver mines of Athens, for instance, were infamous for their brutal conditions. Slaves worked in narrow, suffocating tunnels, extracting the precious ore that fueled Athens' economy and military ambitions. Many of these workers died from exhaustion, respiratory diseases, or accidents. Women slaves faced an additional layer of exploitation. They were often victims of sexual violence, whether in households, brothels, or as concubines. Their suffering was compounded by their lack of autonomy over their bodies and lives. One of the most unsettling aspects of ancient Greek slavery is its connection to democracy. Athens, heralded as the cradle of democracy, depended heavily on slave labor to sustain its political and cultural achievements. Free Athenian men could afford to participate in democratic debates and public life precisely because slaves handled their day-to-day responsibilities. This paradox exposes a glaring contradiction. The freedoms of some were built upon the bondage of many. Even the celebrated philosophers of the time, including Plato and Aristotle, largely ignored this hypocrisy, accepting slavery as a natural part of their world. Despite the oppressive system, there were instances of resistance. Some slaves fled to sanctuaries, hoping to gain freedom through divine intervention. Others escaped during wartime chaos, blending into other regions or seeking refuge among hostile powers. There were also rare but significant revolts. For example, the Helots, the subjugated population in Sparta, periodically rebelled against their Spartan overlords. These uprisings were brutally suppressed, but they served as reminders that even the most dehumanized individuals yearned for freedom. The legacy of ancient Greek slavery is both sobering and complex. While we admire the intellectual and cultural achievements of this era, we must also confront the fact that these accomplishments were intertwined with exploitation. Understanding the dark side of ancient Greece challenges us to think critically about the narratives we celebrate and the systems we live within. Slavery was not unique to ancient Greece, but its pervasiveness in such an influential society raises important questions about the moral compromises behind progress. Ancient Greece is often seen as a beacon of enlightenment and progress, but its dependence on slavery reveals a darker truth. By examining this aspect of its history, we not only gain a more nuanced understanding of the past, but also reflect on how systems of oppression continue to shape societies today. The story of ancient Greek slavery is not just a tale of human suffering. It is a call to confront the uncomfortable truths about power, privilege, and freedom. Thank you for watching. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into history's untold stories.